So when we ask the question, if we do, why it is that we engage in these practices and what is the hoped for outcome, the best way to answer the question of what the hoped for outcome is to engage in the practice itself. Since nothing is permanent, we don't need to worry about changing something in our mind stream that could be permanently detrimental. Quite the opposite. The intention is to nurture our natural state of mind, which, while inherently awakened, it is taught, the problem is we're asleep. So we are not in close conscious connection with that awakened mind. But it is always, without exception, taught that we are each fully endowed with it, no different than the Buddha. My favorite story of the Buddha is when someone approached him on the street and asked what the difference between the Buddha and this inquiring person would be. He said there is no difference. No difference really whatsoever. But then the Buddha said, I am aware of my awakened mind, the thing that all beings are endowed with. You do not see it. And therein lies the difference. Not a difference in the persons, but just a difference in recognizing even just the presence of that awakened mind. So one thing is clear, there is a chasm, really, between an understanding which is conceptual and an understanding which is experiential. We have in our culture and in many cultures become thoroughly trained in conceptual abilities, by which we often receive enormous benefits in the world, financially and otherwise. And so we often have difficulty crossing the bridge back and forth between what is useful to understand conceptually and what is useful to understand experientially. And we often confuse these two. That if you read a book on Buddhist practice, you can finish reading the book in a relatively short time and have the clear experience that you fully understand what you read. because you know the words, you know the meanings of the sentences. Everything connects. And then as time goes by, you have the sense that actually it doesn't work. Because fundamentally, those kleshas that we mentioned earlier, the conflicted emotional states, we have an aversion to working with those. When actually, they're fundamentally the gold. Without working with them, putting them aside, we have the illusion sometimes that we've worked with them, we've settled it. I put it aside, it doesn't bother me anymore. One example of that phenomena is we often place our awareness when we practice shamatha, calm abiding, on an external object. Kind of like, this is a very nice flower, so I can put it there and I can put my awareness on that flower. And because it's beautiful, I can rest my awareness there a while. But essentially, it doesn't have much power. When it dries up and shrivels up, I do not mourn. I just get another flower. What we need to do over time is train ourselves to see our own conflicted states as the flower, as a flower, as something beautiful. That, of course, does not happen automatically, or we'd all have it already, because we've all experienced conflict. So one way to understand it is that rather than put a flower in front of us, we need to put in front of us something irritating. The memory of something irritating is actually not bad. Better that it be something current, but even just the memory of something unresolved, something difficult that we would like to do but haven't yet really settled into, haven't done it. Anything experiential that is difficult. The value of that is that difficult things, especially emotionally trying things, are endowed with great power. If I put my awareness on a nickel, it's worth just 5 cents. It doesn't have any power at all. But if I'm having a really difficult time with somebody else, and I'm up to my eyebrows in judgment, that has a lot of power. If I can place my awareness on that experience and rest with it, not even with any agenda as to fix it, to do anything with it, just to be present with it, many positive things follow naturally. So I think that's why Kala Rinpoche said, take every experience, especially the difficult ones, as a gift from the Guru, rather than something which feels like it's kind of a dirty task in front of us. We take it as a gift. The gift makes it possible for us to embrace it wholeheartedly. So a big question is, how do you train in that? How do you get that? How do you learn to do that? And I think maybe the most clear answer is twofold. One is constantly remind ourselves that the entire Dharma, like all of the myriad teachings, the tens of thousands of pages of teachings, the teachings from really great teachers who are clearly realized, we need to take every experience that we receive as a gift. Not a gift to fix broken things, nor a fix to overcome any obstacle, but a gift that is just something that is a gift because we can be present with it. Nothing more or less than that. In order to do that, we have to get really good at it. In order to get really good at it, we have to do it over and over. So one way to do it over and over is, of course, repeat many times. But repeating many times while you're sitting at your cushion gets really dull. So we need to go out and get in trouble. So to speak. Just to go on a walk, for example, and let's say the walk is a 10-minute walk. So we walk for a minute and we just notice. Today is kind of a warm day outside. So we stop after a minute and we just allow ourselves to fully experience, be present with whatever the experience is that we're having. Whether it's warmth, whether it's cold, whether it's disappointment, whether it's hunger, whether it's anxiousness, whatever it is, just to be present with it and then let it go. So to just be present and to just let it go are equally important. In order to let it go, we have to have been present with it, or there's nothing to let go of. So we have to be with it, embrace it as a gift, just be present with it, and just let it dissolve. In our awareness, walk another minute. Stop again. Look and see. Your experience will be entirely different. It will not be what it was 1 minute ago. Even if you wanted it to be. Now you have disappointment that what you wanted isn't there. No matter what you do, the experience will change. No matter what you do, the experience will disappear. No matter what you do, you cannot stop the next experience. So your job is to get really good at just being present with the experience that you encounter and witnessing the experience dissolve on its own. You cannot get rid of the experience, but the experience will also not remain. So to witness that process in real time, over and over during the day, separated by just being present generally with whatever the experience is that's going on, and then stopping and noticing, and then letting go of that, and then shortly later, stopping and noticing. I think that if you could do that, stopping and noticing every 10 minutes during the day, within a week, you would have a level of realization that was unexpected. Not so difficult. How much time is that? The issue is not the time. The issue is we can't remember. I will stop in another minute, and then it's suddenly an hour later, you forgot. So you have to have it closer together. More like you stop, you look, and 10 seconds later you look. And you walk around the block doing that. And you say hello to somebody that you hadn't seen before. And you have an experience. And they're already past you. And so you just rest your awareness on that experience. You have to do it often, because otherwise it just breaks up. We forget. I can't tell you how many people I know, including myself, who set a goal that I would go out and I would meditate during the day. I would stop and do 3 minutes 3 times a day. 9 times out of 10, the end of the day, I go home and realize I didn't do it. It's not an issue of not being able, it's an issue of not being able to recall and remember and be present. So you have to have very short intervals, really short. A minute sometimes is too long. So you have to mix the bringing of the awareness, not just the conceptual understanding. So the idea here is that we actually come to recognize the difference between a conceptual understanding and an experiential understanding. If you don't get the experiential understanding, you will never get the Dharma. If you don't get the Dharma, you will give it up because you're intelligent. Why would you continue to work at something that never bears any fruit or bears little fruit? So getting the experiential side is difficult because we can't remember what we set out to do. It's not because the Dharma is difficult, it's just we're distracted continuously. Oh yeah, I have to remember to do that. I'll do that first. And then it's the following day before you pick it up again. Putting yourself in a situation where there are distractions, just walking around the block and saying hello to 3 people that you see is extremely helpful to just continually make connection, because making connections is what the entire path is about. That's the truth of interdependence. You meet somebody, you say hello, you look like you're having a nice day. Oh, that's so nice. Good enough. Done. You just move on and do that again as many times as you can during the day, so that it becomes like your sense of what you do. You meet people, you give them a gift. So not only do you get a gift, no matter what it is, you have a sense of you did something nice. Even you just smiled at somebody and they smiled back. They will experience that as a gift. So you also train your mind that your intention is to deliver something positive to every being that you meet. That easily is transformed into bodhicitta, which is the foundation from a power standpoint, from a fuel standpoint, if you will. That is the basis for the path. We want to take a big leap, and we can't do it, and then we give up. That bodhicitta needs to just be nurtured all the time, and it just keeps growing all the time. And then things that were difficult gradually start to become easy. But if we continually think, I'm not doing enough, we never make the grade when we actually were already there from the beginning. So my suggestion in this session, which is a short one, try to bring your awareness to your actual experience, whether it's pain in your leg, the sense of joy that your mind settled clearly, then you have to let go of the joy or it turns into disappointment. It's kind of like, things you put in the refrigerator when you should have thrown them away. It's like once you've had the experience, you just let it go. And the next one will be there before you realize it. And then when it doesn't come, we see the disappointment. The disappointment is also ripe fruit. Just have it. Just notice it. Get good at that, noticing your experience, so that when you engage in the practice and you have an experience, you just notice the experience. That's how the experience grows. That's how we come facile at the experience, how it goes deeper. It doesn't need to be polluted with, it wasn't big enough. See, that just undermines it immediately, which is why it's good to have one breath. You take one breath, you follow the breath, you let go. Perfect. Small perfections are more important than big disappointments. So let's take our time now. We'll recite the refuge prayer. And we'll use the rest of the time then to settle our awareness on the experiences and just see it and let it go. Refuge prayer 3 times.
Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
So our lunch break will begin, and we will reconvene at 1:30 for open discussion, Q&A, all that. And probably there are some announcements.
Probably. First of all, thank you for staying all morning. So good to do that with you, really. And a number of us will be leaving Tuesday and going out to SCOL for retreats. I'm wondering how many here are going on retreat. Just raise up your hand. Nice and what?
I am cooking.
Oh, so please, I just want to raise up so people can look and see who, there's quite a number of us going on retreat, so wish those folks well, and we'll be thinking of you, or at least not thinking too much, but watching thoughts. We'll watch our thoughts of you go by and dissolve. Anyway, Lama Eric will be out there leading first a calm abiding and insight, and then a couple days off, and then Chen Razi, and then a little, I think, headed into a meeting or short retreat with the Yidam group from our Mahamudra program. So it will be wonderful, and we'll send you all that merit. Another thing is welcoming Ryan and Tracy back from the great state of Wisconsin. They're here for the retreat and helping, and Ryan has done a lot with us from afar, so thank you. And then the last thing I know, two more. There will be a fascinating and exciting class in October because I'm facilitating on equanimity and diversity. I'm really quite excited about the class. There's a wonderful book called Mindful of Race by an African-American Buddhist named Ruth King. So we'll try to get that book into the bookstore, but feel free to get it early because that's 1 month away till the first class. So those will be on Saturday mornings, and they'll be here. 2 in October, 1 in November. Then a little later in November, Lama Michael and Tim Campbell will be leading mind training retreat out at the land. So if you didn't get to go to this one, go clear off your calendar, talk to your boss, your wife, your husband, your friend, and go to that one. It's really important to do at least one retreat a year if you can. It will boost your practice tremendously. And I think, is it this Friday? I'm looking at Heather. Young adult group here. 7 to 9. Yeah. Self-defined. You are a young adult if you define that way and come. It helps to be under 50.
Under 50.
Oh, we moved it 10 years. No,
So generous.
under 40. Yeah. We used to say 40, but no, under 40. Okay, that's all I know. Linda Grove, anything else? All right, Cynthia.
It might be the Death and Dying Study practice group this Tuesday
Okay. Anybody know for sure? Death and Dying Study Group, maybe this Tuesday. So how did they find out?
It will be this Tuesday, and one way or another it'll happen as usual.
Okay, this Tuesday, as usual, Death and Dying. Of course, it could happen any moment. So keep that in mind. Your very own Swift practice. Okay, and Zopa, Jeff.
One announcement which is pertinent for today, which is last I saw on the lunch setup list and the lunch cleanup list, there are 2 people signed up for setup, 2 out of hopefully 3, so 1 person missing, and no one has signed up for cleanup. Anyone feel like doing that? 1 hand, 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands. Great. Fantastic. Thank you.
I just have a request that people wash their hands thoroughly before they handle food.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.